I welcome you all for today's e-session on role of innovation in current pandemic situation. We have Mr. Nikhil Malhotra today, and I welcome him on behalf of MCCI. A short brief about his career. Nikhil is a global head of innovation and creator of Makers Lab, a unique incubator space within Tech Mahindra. He has a rich experience of over 2 decades in industry. He is leading growth of AI and machine learning research within the organization. In his present avatar, he focuses on AI, quantum computing, robotics, and mixed reality. Nikhil has also designed an indigenous robot in his lab as a personal assistant. He holds a master's degree in computing from Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, Melbourne. Without wasting much time, I would now hand over the this thing to Mr. Nikhil. Sir, please.
Thank you so much, Lalit. And first of all, good morning to all of you. I want to first thank Lalit and the MCCI for giving us this opportunity to present. Number one. Number two, thank you to all the guests who are arriving in, and I still see people coming in, which is again, a big thanks to all of you to essentially spend the morning. I would just shift myself from the screen to essentially share the screen and start. Fantastic. So, for all the people who've joined in, I think we are living in a state of crisis at this point of time. And I think some people say that this crisis could have been averted had we known earlier. Some other people say that the earth's taking possibly a revenge from all the things that we have done as human beings. And I think there are different facets to what we can look at. From a technological point of view, what you can do as innovations, not just from technology, but certain other facets. I would like to spend the next 35-40 minutes in explaining that. I would like to explain it in two phases. Number one, what we have been doing, what's our philosophy, but also what have we been doing in our fight against COVID. You would have seen some paper reports about what we have done. Everybody knows about Arogya Setu. Everybody's saying that that's a contact track and trace solution. What Tech Mahindra and what the innovation team and the teams in Tech Mahindra have been doing is we have put a telehealth system behind Arogya Setu, so which is a part of Arogya Setu Mitra. And we are also doing some certain other facets with the government. We're doing research on protein, etc., which I would love to show you. But before that, I just wanted to essentially give a context. This is myself. I have been 21 years in the industry. And I started off my career after finishing my graduation or master's with IBM. And IBM, I was part of the research team. So part of that team, which essentially built the Watson code. And post that, I essentially left IBM, joined Tech Mahindra. I have been playing a lot of roles in TechM, right from the facet of technical architect, a senior architect, a global head of innovation. But 2014 was possibly the time when I essentially decided that I would go back to India from US. And I would start something like an R&D sector within the country itself. The main purpose for that R&D sector was only one. Number one, when we look at India as the solution bowl of technology. Everybody who has a problem comes to India and tries to get it solved. But in that midst of the last 10, 15 years that we have been solving a lot of problems, we have probably missed out the art of finding what the problem really is. So our research and development wings needed to be started. We also need to understand the why about a problem rather than the what and the how. So we started it with a very small space called Makers Lab in Tech Mahindra. And that Makers Lab has now grown into about 10 or 12 different locations across the world, where we do co-innovation with researchers, we do co-innovation with businesses, but we also have a lot of academia connect. A lot of students come to us, students as young as 13 to 14 years of age in schools that we are now trying to build Makers Lab in, where essentially they have a lot of ideas of how technology can be taken into the next forum, or even students from colleges who do internship with us. And I'll be able to share with you some of the work that these students are doing. When we started this lab, the idea behind all of this was what is the mission and the vision behind it. And you can see on the screen, the vision is very, very simple. The vision is how do you connect with people and how do you simplify their lives by creating experiences. Very, very simple vision of what you want to do from an innovation perspective. But the mission, however, is much, much grander. And the mission that we started off with was also an idea that I was discovering while I was building Watson, or while I was building codes of Watson, is a lot of people, when they essentially talk about new technology today, they also talk about AI, machine learning, and they spruce these words in their PPT. Number one, without understanding what it really means. But also the second facet is that AI and machine learning has become so ubiquitous today that people tend to use it in different facets. And it's become more of an SDK from a technology perspective. It's something that you can probably write a simple piece of code. Wanted to understand what is behind AI, what is exactly intelligence, how does the human brain really work, and can we look at some of that facets of human brains and probably put up into an AI system. And I would explain to you in the next couple of slides what I really mean. But the idea of intelligence being primal, and please ensure that I'm not trying to build a sentient machine over here, but what we are trying to do is how can AI be more effective in solving a problem or solving some of the things that the world is looking towards by combining an art of neuroscience as well as the facet of what we do as fast compute over here. And that has been our mission inside the lab. Now, for people who have been part of the computer industry, they would know what I'm talking about when I say Turing test. For some of the others, I would love to explain. The idea behind this came from, and if you have not seen it, I would strongly recommend that you go tonight and probably watch something called an imitation game. It's a movie, but what this imitation game really talks about is effect of where AI really started. And the context behind this is this was the Second World War, and the German ships were essentially impounding and pounding the British ships. And they were also connecting. The idea was that Britishers did not know where the attack from Germans came in. The Germans were using a very simple encryption technology, which was very difficult at that time to crack, and they called it Enigma. And codes or short codes were being passed from one point to another, and the Britishers could not crack the code, and within 24 hours, the code would change. And that code would essentially lead to another downfall, another bombing for people, etc. At that point in time, a young graduate joins the Bletchley Park and he says, I can crack this code. Because the problem of cracking that code was that if 200,000 people across the world combine together and start cracking that code together, only then in 24 hours would that code be cracked, and it will change every 24 hours. So this young gentleman was called Alan Turing, and he said that I would build a machine to crack a machine code. So that is possibly the starting point of change in technology, what you see today in your lives, whether it is your phone where you're talking on Siri, whether it is, some new systems which are giving you predictive mechanisms, all of them have come from Alan Turing, and all of them lie at the root at that point when this was started. When Turing built this machine and he cracked the code, he also gave a very simple test, and this has come to be known as Turing test in the technology world. What it really says is that if there are human interviewer sitting in the middle, and there's a computer on the right-hand side across a wall, and there's another human on the left-hand side, this human questioner keeps asking questions to both ends, and he cannot make a difference between whether he's talking to a computer or a human being. Then this computer has passed this test. This test has commonly been called as Turing test. In all the world of AI and machine learning, we try and bring this Turing test up front, and we try and solve this. However, when I studied this and I started doing my research, I figured out that Turing might have left a flaw in that test, and that flaw is very simple. If I can mimic intelligence, I am supposedly called intelligent. It is the facet that the machine does not understand intelligence. It is not an intelligence of a human baby who in less than 5 seconds can recognize a difference between a cat and dog. The moment his mother or father tells him that this is cat, this is dog, the machine needs large amount of data. So the machine is basically looking at large amounts of data and trying to predict some value. So it's trying to mimic some definition. My research also took me to some facets where we look at the brain. And there are hundreds of examples today where neuroscientists have discovered, and this is a very well proven fact, that the cortex, a small neocortex, which is like the sheet of a paper, if you crumple it, that's the size of the cortex that sits in your brain, has just one algorithm. And they tried doing this. And no animals were harmed, of course, and no humans were done, but this was done on rat and mice, etc. But what we did was that the nerve that goes from your sense organs, which is the skin, which gives you the ability, and that connects itself to the brain, they cut that nerve and they essentially tied that nerve to the eye. And what happened was that this portion of the brain, which was supposed to sense touch, started seeing in about 1 month. with the actual process of what we call as seeing. And they did a similar experiment where they essentially cut the nerve of the ear and placed it to the eye. That region of the brain started, seeing as well. What it really meant was that if you compare or an analogy between the brain and the machine, the portions of the brain really take in a lot of data and they mold themselves in what we are today. So our beliefs, our disbeliefs, what we think as faith, etc., just lies within this small little neocortex that contains about 20 billion neurons that essentially gives you the ability of what you are as a human being. And that modeling of that effect is essentially done by what is your experiences in life. What have you seen as kids? What have your parents given you? What have you experienced over your entire life is what your cortex really builds in, and that is your world. So we started looking at that world, and we thought there are great advantages to this. And I'm showcasing you some of these advantages. What you see on this, most of you would recognize that this is a foggy condition. It's a train coming in on a track because I can see a lot of things. Well, if you give it to today's machines who do not understand this facet, most of them don't really understand what's going on over here. And they would essentially say that these are three lights coming. They would never be able to connect a train, a track, as well as the foggy condition, what a human brain could essentially do. Similar example, when you see this image of a blurry face, you possibly are thinking 2 or 3 things in your brain at the moment. You're saying that there is a person behind this image. I do not know that person. Maybe I know him, but you're trying to adjust those features in your brain and you're trying to move your neurons to say, what could be that person? Well, a computer doesn't really look at that. It doesn't really understand this image and it essentially fails. Most of you would get this image. It's a cat that is trying to put its face into a sandal or, a piece of a shoe. When you give it to your machines or whatever AI that we call it, most of them call it as polar bear. The reason for that is that they cannot see the eyes and the ears of a cat, which distinguish a cat from any other system. Whereas we humans definitely know that there's a shape and a size to it. There is a connection to the cat, and this would be the cat in the system. And then basically she's trying to put her mouth or face into a sandal. Most of you, all of you, in fact, would know that this is a chair. And this is a half-cut chair that is put against a wall. When you give it to a machine, the machines say that this is a violin because they cannot see the full chair itself. Now, that's the distinction that a human brain does, which is very, very different from what a machine does. And that's the part of the research that we try and do at Makers Lab, where we try and connect these points and say, what could a machine learn much more better by looking at some of the facets of how the brain's thinking and how neuroscience is working. So ideally, this is our focus. We do research on machine learning and AI. We also do a lot of augmented and virtual reality. Some portions I'll be able to show you running live. And these are games which are being built for enterprises and gamification that is done today, because it is said that if you play games, you learn much more better. We are also very, very deep-rooted in blockchain. In fact, the first blockchain system of India, which is called E11, was essentially set up by us. And this is essentially now running in Hyderabad. The idea is that your land records, etc., also need to be blockchain to essentially find the source. So that's what we do. We do build our IoT and robotics. I think Lalit mentioned briefly that I have built a robot inside the lab, which is essentially my personal assistant. So if you manage to happen to come to the lab, it is the robot that you meet first rather than me. And the robot tells you whether I'm available in the office or not. The other facet which is greatly going at this point is quantum computing. And for those of you who may not know, that quantum computing is essentially looking at the atoms in the space, their real deep down value of physics in the atomic world, taking it into the physical world for computation and trying to solve some of the problems that we face today in this world. Of course, we do design thinking. We do a lot of Academia Connect. As I mentioned, there are a lot of students who are working and interning with us. There are 2 or 3 startups that have come out of Makers Lab where students learned this and essentially started their own startups as well. Now, what's the philosophy of the lab? The philosophy of the lab is just built on design. And if you see this picture, what you're essentially trying to see is that whatever we do, we essentially try and add value to that system. We try and see whether the system is useful. We try and see whether the system has desirability and is also efficient. If we do not have that system, we essentially do not really know what's going on in the next world. And for this desirability of a design, we take in a lot of people. Some people now call it a terminology called design thinking, We essentially call it that this is the basic and the crux of what you do when you essentially build anything new. We look at large number of people joining us, which include students, which includes people from different age groups, which also include people from different backgrounds, to essentially see what we are doing. And a critical example I can give you, which we essentially applied design thinking, was essentially building up, the Mahindra truck. If you notice that if you go to a farmland, the Mahindra truck is made, and the Mahindra truck is basically to ferry and give farmers the ability to carry bulk loads. When we were designing it, we had all sorts of great designs in Italian designs, we were looking at French designs, etc. And we came up with a whole new system that could be built in. When somebody or someone intelligent in the group said, have you checked with the farmers? And we suddenly got an idea and thought that the reason why we are building all of this is we are building for the farmer. So we essentially need to talk to the farmer. We went to the farmer, we showed him the design, and I would use a colloquial Hindi terminology, and it was a farmer in Marathwada, and we said, boss, tere liye hum ye truck bana rahe hain. He said, sir, mujhe ye sab nahi chahiye. I just need a place to put my hand in this. Now, that really shook us and essentially took us by surprise, for the whole reason being that we were building this huge design system, but the farmer only wanted some place to keep his hand and a steering wheel and a horn that he could probably honk up when he reaches his house or his in-laws' house to tell him that he has something called a gadi with him. So we changed the design, and that's the whole facet that we want to utilize when we essentially do design thinking. So our philosophy is built on these 4 components, which is called RFEM. R essentially means the value of a non-visible part which uniquely defines experiences. What you see is the Melbourne tram, but if you notice, this is the driver's seat on the tram. Nobody sees the driver because you enter the tram and your component is very different from the driver. But that component, which is non-visible, also drives new experiences because if the driver cannot drive well, you essentially do not have those trams. The F is the functional component, which essentially says that these are features which are uniquely visible in your product, and that functional component works. And the reason why it works is the reason why we use trams. The E is basically saying that this is an etymology of design, which says that the product is retro or we design it in this fashion. And the M is the memory part. Even today, if you go to Australia and Melbourne and ask somebody who are old enough to say, what is a tram for you? This would be the picture that they would be showcasing you. So they still have that memory connect. So whatever you build and whatever we try and build within this Makers Lab has a memory component attached to it, which essentially binds the human beings to that particular product. This is what Makers Lab in very brief does. There are a huge lot of things, and I would request and recommend anybody who wants to see this can come down to Hinjawadi. There's a Makers Lab section. You would see people, of course, post-COVID, you will see people working over there. You would see people working in a garage. But then COVID happened. And when that COVID happened, all of us, of course, went into social distancing. But also Makers Lab and the R&D unit of Tech Mahindra started looking at what can we essentially have this against COVID. We are also part and parcel of what we are doing with Government of India. Government of India launched Arogya Setu. We essentially said that we would boost up Arogya Setu from behind the scenes. We have put up a telehealth system where the consultation is free. You can actually go into Arogya Setu Mitra. You can actually get a doctor's consultancy free of cost. Today, that is what we gave to the government. And then movement of people. So for example, e-pass system or a movement during lockdown or partial lockdown is something that we did. But before we reach that stage, we realize how Herculean this effort is to make or produce any innovation in COVID times for a country like India. There are 2 reasons for this. A country like India is not just linguistically diverse. It is also legislatively, biologically, as well as geographically very, very diverse. So you have constraints of velocity, you have constraints of all sorts of complexity. And when we started jotting down this complexity, we found these are the reasons. You have population, which is, of course, in huge number, but you have legislative thoughts. Health, if you consider, is considered as a state subject, but there are different legislations which different states follow. Data registry could be very, very different. Technology, what different states use or different portions use is very different. Culture, of course, we know, although we are all similar in basic cultural set, but the culture really changes when you go from one state to another, from north, east, south, or west. Healthcare infrastructure of each state is different. urgency is very, very different. Whereas Maharashtra was facing the brunt of the cause that we were looking at. There were cities like, for example, in Orissa, or states like Orissa, for example, or Bihar, which had no COVID scenarios at that point in time. So you had to look at that urgency as well. And you had to look at expectations of what people believe. And then we also realized that the whole country is going into a lockdown because we follow something called the COVID-19 equation. For those of you who are not familiar, the world has now come to known as a COVID-19 equation set in terms of mathematics. The equation is very, very simple. If you notice this graph, there is a horizontal line, which is the healthcare system capacity of any country. And the blue and the red graphs actually tell you the rise of an epidemic. Now, if we can keep this epidemic or the growth of epidemic in our country lower than the healthcare capacity, which is the horizontal line, then the country works well. If this epidemic grows beyond the amount of healthcare system capacity that we have, then there is pandemonium and there is mayhem, as we have seen in some of the other countries. So we studied a lot of other countries like Greece, Italy, Spain, etc. And we found this was the reason that the graph had actually shortened way above their healthcare system capacity. And they have 4 times the healthcare system capacity what India has. So, and because they did not follow the lockdown procedure, and they went into a complete chaos and pandemonium. Whereas we, and I'm very glad for the leadership of the country, Prime Minister Modi ji and the entire bureaucracy system said that we've got to shut down and lock down this country. Because if we do not lock down, the growth of pandemic as we see from this virus is going to grow much beyond this horizontal line, and it is going to be very, very difficult for us to maintain. While we keep the country locked down, this graph or this line of healthcare system can be moved a little up so that we can manage it when we essentially open up. And that's the reason why you have seen these graded lockdowns in the country. This is primarily the reason why lockdowns was imposed. So this COVID-19 equation was also kept in our mind, and we thought, what can we do from an innovative standpoint? A, help the country, but also B, help the citizens, and do a little bit of research of what is next. So we first went with information. And if you go to this system called entellio.techmahindra.com, this is our own IP, which is basically a chatbot. We started in the very first 2 days, we said, let us give people an information of what they're doing. There were numbers in the data registry. There were people who were saying that these are the centers where you can test for COVID. So we essentially created a very simple chatbot that works in Hindi, Marathi, Tamil, etc., all sorts of languages, and gives you the answers very quickly. And that is the information. That is number one. Second, by this information at that point in time, we also wanted to reduce the amount of fallacy that was going on. Nobody understood the virus properly unless you were a bioscientist or you were doing something in that biological field. And people had all sorts of questions and answers saying what would happen, what would the virus do, what's the exposure period. People didn't know what an R0 is and where the first infection starts, etc. So all of that information we placed in the bot, and we said, first, we will help our own employees who can essentially take this information off this bot. But secondly, we would also release it to the public so that people can essentially use this for any of the purposes. The second thing that we thought was, there are so many young kids from the age of 14 to 18 or even younger ones who would be just locked up in that lockdown. They would need something to essentially make their day happier, but also make sure that they essentially get into a new world and see how digital technologies could be worked in. So what we did within the Makers Lab section or the R&D sectors, we essentially started making games. We started pulling in these game developers, which are already present in Makers Lab. And we said, start making these games that people could play. A simple crossword game that you go in onto a web, you play a crossword. The crossword essentially tells you what COVID scenarios are. You learn also, but you also play a game. And then we gave a Corona Fight Booster system, which is an RPG game where you enter into a castle, you're fighting the virus, etc. And I'll be able to show you if I have time on the web of how it works. The idea was, A, disseminate information. B, ensure that your kids and whoever is going under lockdown is basically helped through this mechanism. So that was the first criteria or innovation that we launched during this COVID-19 times. The second thing that we saw was that there has to be some characteristic given to the government of how the epidemic would grow if you go under no lockdown, if you go into full lockdown, if you go into partial lockdown. So me and my team did an analytics and an AI engine behind the scenes where we essentially gave this graph, and this graph is visible on this particular URL. You can all see this. The graph basically talks about how this epidemic grows. and if there is no lockdown, etc. And the graph is a weighted susceptibility factor of what it takes is patients who have HIV in a state and patients who are 60 years and older, because they are the most susceptible for this particular infection. What is this model? This model is called SEIR model, SEIR. What SEIR really means is that you are susceptible. From a susceptibility point of view, you go into exposure when you are essentially exposed to this virus. This virus exposure works for 14 days. Then you get infected. Post-infection, you are removed from that infection. Either you get immunity or unfortunately you die. So that model of SEIR was essentially built in, and you can go and see different states as to what will happen if partial lockdowns would open up, what will happen if no lockdown would open up, etc., etc. So this was the second thing that we did as a community of data scientists, as people who were doing researches in AI, to essentially give this model of SEIR to people to see how epidemics can actually grow, or how the pandemic would grow if lockdowns or no lockdowns would essentially come up. Then, as I told you, there was also a time when people were discussing that 14th April, the lockdown would probably open up, and this is before 14th April. That 14th April lockdowns would open up, people would be allowed for some movement, etc. So we essentially made a system called ePass. This is available on epass.techmahindra.com, or whatever ePasses that you're seeing. There are 3 systems that were governed, or that has been given by the government and MeitY and TRAI, which run in different states in different formats. For example, Maharashtra has its own ePass, Gujarat has its own ePass. So a standardization of ePass was done. And 3 systems which work today are either a Tech Mahindra ePass made by Makers Lab. It's either an ePass by eGov, which is basically a non-profit organization and funded by Mr. Nandan Nilankani, who's also the chief architect of Aadhaar. And there is an NIC ePass, which probably different states essentially utilize. What is the difference in all these passes? In the basics, they are all the same. What is the change that we have done for any ePass that a state or a city would utilize is, this has got a distributed ledger system or a blockchain which connects back to the TRAI and MeitY, and the source is essentially verified. Now a citizen can go in and basically log in and create an ePass for himself or herself, or a company can actually utilize this ePass to push bulk ePasses for its own employees when the lockdown opens up. And that is very, very important, because people have to work and economy has to open up. So this was another ePass innovation that we essentially did for the company. I also told you that there is a telehealth system today, which is called Tech Mahindra's Connexus, that is sitting behind Arogya Setu as a part of Arogya Setu Mitra. We had run telehealth for a long period of time. The telehealth system has been a dream for any country, and there are 2 reasons for it. Number one, with this pandemic, a lot of people were going to the hospitals. So we had to stop people from going to the hospitals and have the hospital come to people's homes. And the second reason for that is that there is too much pressure on healthcare services. If everybody starts doing with a cough and a fever, go to a doctor to say, boss, mujhe COVID to nahi hua hai. So all of this, we looked at our own telehealth system. This telehealth system pre this was a face-to-face consultation. It was being utilized in some states like Tamil Nadu. We have covered a total population of about 7 crores with this. And a total number of calls that have been handled is about 45 lakhs. 16 lakhs of advices were given up till date to essentially people who had different cases or scenarios. So we utilized this entire telehealth system and we gave it behind as a telehealth light for Arogya Setu. So this is the Tech Mahindra's light COVID-19 telemedicine solution. It can, if you go to Arogya Setu or if you go to ConnectSense Tech Mahindra, you would be able to see this. You can register yourself. It's all free. You can get consultations from doctor, you, your family member, etc. It can allow for doctor scheduling. You can schedule your consultation with a doctor. The doctor can come in and figure out some of the cases or some of your conditions and can then advise a prescription or can tell you that this is okay. You don't really go into it. So this was another way in which we were bridging the gap of digital and innovation from the citizen's point of view to the services point of view or the citizen services. We also do run something in states which is called 108. So if you dial 108, the people who receive your call is the Tech Mahindra call center and of course knowledge personals who are essentially calling you. In some states it's also called 112. So whenever you dial 108 for your ambulance services, etc., it is Tech Mahindra at the back end, which is essentially providing you services. And that runs today for almost about 100 crores of people in this country, which they essentially utilize. The next feature set that we looked at was that while we have looked at the citizen, we have looked at the doctors, we have tried to save them. There is another component which is essentially not understood today, and that is the healthcare workers, our fighters and warriors, who are going into these situations in COVID-19 cases or suspect areas, and they are essentially testing people. We needed to do something for them. So we essentially built up this COVID-19 tracker, which essentially is a digital mechanism for municipalities to essentially see how people can go up. There is, of course, mechanism to upload digital documents, onboarding and scale of health workers, but it also gives you who is quarantined, who is not. Are people flouting quarantines? Are they defaulting it? There is an automatic assignment of patient to a worker, and that worker can actually monitor that patient and take care of that patient, go to the house and see you are okay. But also we wanted to connect something for the healthcare worker. So we looked at a condition where a small patch can be given on a worker's body. It is a sensor-based system. It can essentially alert the healthcare worker when his temperature rises, so that their life is also saved in this whole mechanism. So that was another thing that we did. While we were doing with all these solutions, which we also wanted to give to people, to the citizen, we also did a lot of research behind it. The research essentially was against the virus. You can read in Economic Times today, it was yesterday, where there are some links which have been given by Forbes India and Economic Times of how Makers Lab has done research and development. And we have found some credible therapeutic drugs as well as Ayurvedic drugs that can nullify the virus impact. And that is basically our computational analysis, or that is being done by AI, etc. But what is the research? Well, the first thing that me and my team did was we essentially broke open the virus. So what you see on the left-hand side is the virus strain. Virus protein system looks like. And it is like a conical shape, and it has got its own amino acids, atoms, chemistry 101 or biology 101 that we probably would go in. The first thing was we made this atomic cloud, and we essentially started comparing this atomic cloud with all the known viruses and parasites in this, which has come and dogged the human history. So we looked at corona, we looked at how the amino acid sequence change would match with polio, with measles, with pneumonia, and we found some very interesting results. The result that we found was that this coronavirus protein amino acid sequence matches very well with the polio virus as well. And somehow the polio virus structure as well as the coronavirus structure seems to be similar. So maybe there is some opportunity that an old polio vaccine could be utilized. We were not sure. And then we heard that there is a scientist called Dr. Robert Barlow in US who has also claimed that OPV or old polio vaccine may work. Well, again, we were doing only computational analysis. We are not doctors. We are biosystem analysis, or people who are essentially doing research and development using AI. So this was one of the results that we published, and you can read this result on my LinkedIn or, if you go to Makers Lab. The second research that we did was, and this is very interesting and important, is the reason why this virus has a greater impact on the human scale is basically because when this virus enters the body, it attaches itself to an enzyme in your body. And that enzyme is called ACE2, ACE2. That enzyme is a part of retinotensin system of the body, which manages your blood pressure and heart rate. Now, what happens is that when this virus binds with this ACE2, it has got a higher affinity. This enzyme through the blood along with the virus flows into your epithelial airway or the lungs. And the white blood cells or your immune system thinks that it is trying to attack a virus. In its midst, it attacks the lungs. And as a result of that, you have that breathing problem, which essentially affects people. And that's the whole idea where this virus becomes very, very contagious and very dangerous. Now, the reason why kids don't get it that often is because we found, or we researched and found, that kids may not have a large component of ACE2. Kids do not have a lot of stress. And you would have heard in news saying kids are not getting affected or kids are more immune to this. The main reason was that the virus was not finding a lot of host. The host is the ACE2 enzyme. We adults have more ACE2 because we have to manage our blood pressure, temperature, and we have loads of stresses in our life. So if you lead a stress-free life, probably the ACE2 enzyme goes lesser. How do you stop the virus from attacking the ACE2? There is only a way where some drug can actually bind to this virus, and that virus effect gets nullified. And virus is essentially a non-living object. But if the non-living object is not allowed to bind to our enzyme, then we can probably save it. This is basically being done today by us as an innovation, where we are essentially looking at different compounds and we are trying to run biological analysis and molecular analysis on a computer simulation. And we found some good areas and ideas of what we could do. So for example, we found that there are some drugs like limonene essentially which bind well. People have been saying about hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine. We found that this does not bind well to the virus. However, some Ayurvedic drugs like ashwagandha, we found there are certain components of molecules in ashwagandha that essentially bind well to the virus. All of these research reports are available online. You can go ahead and see that. And these research reports are not kept with us. They are essentially sent to the next community, which is Central Services for Scientific Information Exchange, which is CSIR, ICMR, the Health Ministry. We are saying our work of computational analysis is done. But if you can also look at it from a human angle, then the next process is trials and what you find out and what's the next stage. You would have also heard that Pune has become the first city where the trials for ashwagandha system has also been going on. So that's the research that we are essentially going. All of this material is available online. You can go and read about it. You can go and follow me, and there are most of these things that we are doing. There is a COVID era, which is the pre-COVID era. There is the COVID era that we are looking at today, which we are living in. But there's also going to be a post-COVID era. Makers Lab, fortunately or unfortunately, decided to go through these bets even before COVID came up. And the research and development sector had 3 big bets. And these are the 3 big bets which we are working across. One of them is, of course, the Road 2 system, where we are trying to build an autonomous vehicle in India with level 2 autonomy as a bolt-on system. The bolt-on is that even if you have a Maruti Suzuki, which is built in 2000, you can make it autonomous. Or you have a newer car, like, for example, a Jaguar that we made autonomous. So this is one of our areas. Why is this essential? With social distancing norms and more people requiring transport for essential services, this might be useful. And this is some work that we would do once the lockdown opens up. There are a lot of work and research that has gone into Road 2. The second process is ethical AI system. While we collect a lot of data from people, is it ethical? And is the machine working in an ethical fashion with people? So there should be no racist comments. There should be ethics when you talk to people. And here we are researching with World Economic Forum, and we're trying to build an ethical switch. And this is something that you would see by the end of the year. And of course, our third bet is quantum computing, where we are trying to do drug researches. And we're trying to do, we started off with cancer, of course, to find out whether there are certain drugs that can work against cancer. But then COVID happened and we changed our philosophy to COVID world. And we started looking at this virus and this protein, etc. Which is, and I say, why us? Point that we make, and this is the 360-degree mode of lab, which essentially does this. Whether you have a biological component, whether you have partners in design, whether you have startups that are connected to us, universities, or our own teams, they're all working together in this pre-COVID and post-COVID era so that we can essentially provide that innovation. So I would now like to end and give into questionnaire. But my final takeaway of what we follow in the Makers Lab is essentially a principle called courage. But I don't want to define courage in the same fashion that it has already been defined before. The courage basically means strength. For us, courage means this. C means collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. So we are open to collaboration with people, and that is how we work in the innovation sector. And that is going to be the norm even post-COVID and in this COVID era, where people don't meet, but they have to still collaborate online. We objectify a lot of things. So basically, when people say that this technology works, we have to get to the nitty-gritty of why that technology works. And of us has the ability to think creatively and make something, and that is why we are the makers of our destiny. We also believe that R means rewiring your psyche. While the heart continues to pump blood involuntarily 24/7, it's the brain that needs that rewiring. And this is what we follow as a culture within Makers Lab. And the next one's very interesting because we tend to ask stupid questions almost every single day, even though we know the answer. The reason for that is that if you keep doing this, you will tend to simplify a complex problem. And that is the root cause of what all innovation does it. Whether it is Mitti Cool, which was done in a small village in Rajasthan, or it is a coronavirus impact or a drug research that is done by Makers Lab in an urban sector in Pune. All of this is about asking those stupid questions every day and trying to figure out an answer for that. We also keep our goals very high. So the idea behind all of this is that if you want to land on moon, you have your goal, which is actually thinking about landing on Mars. Because unless you keep that elevated goal, you don't really get to a point. And the last part is empathizing with your own ego first. I think for people in the service industry line would essentially say that empathize with your customer is a word which is very commonly utilized. In the innovation sector that we run or I run, my philosophy is you empathize with your own self first. It is like in a plane when you say wear your mask before you put a mask on a child. The simple reason for that empathy is that you get into potholes of despair during innovation. It is very important for yourself to pick yourself up from that state itself. So I'd like to end over here. Thank you for giving me this time, but I'm more open to questions if you have it. At any point.
Hello, Nikhil. Can you hear me?
I can. Yes, please.
Okay. I'll read one by one questions being raised in the chat box.
Sure.
The first one comes from Mr. Abasaheb Kale. Please elaborate on blockchain use in e-immune system or any other such application.
So I think it's not the e-immune system, but the e-pass system. The idea of blockchain is that if you remember, TRAI at some point in time had done a blockchain of KYC of companies. So the blockchain component is basically saying what is the source that is giving you this permission. The reason why it is used in e-pass is that, let's say, for example, I have a small firm or I have a large firm like, for example, a Tech Mahindra, and I want to give them passes post-COVID for them to move during this lockdown, go to offices and work. Who would verify whether this company is liable and has a KYC done? That KYC system is essentially being used from a blockchain perspective in the e-pass system, and that is being done by TRAI and MeitY. So that's where blockchain is used. For any other system that you want, it's basically a hash or a very simple hash mechanism. So it's just verification of the source. So the source is Tech Mahindra, which is saying 100 employees would go to work, and that is what basically says that the source is verified. That's the whole idea.
Thank you. The another question is from Mr. Mandar Bhatavdekar. He's asking what collaboration should happen to make India as Atmanirbhar Bharat mentioned by Honorable Prime Minister.
So I think there's a lot of collaboration that needs to happen. First, the MSME sector needs to be pushed up. I think which the government is already doing through. You would have also heard about Bharat Craft, which Gadkari Saab essentially raised out, saying that Bharat Craft is the new portal, which is our effort against Amazon or whatever, where MSMEs can give their services or their products over there. Number one. But number two, the Atmanirbharta also means that we have to look at the India stack and make our own, which of course a lot of MSMEs have been doing over the past few years, but they have not been realized. And this is a good point now which they get realized. But from a technology standpoint, technology should also be built on our own. And that's the Atmanirbharta by putting up the India stack. For people who don't know the India stack is called the JAM, which is basically Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, Arogya and Mobile. If you can look at that India stack, it includes payments like UPI. It includes Ayushman Bharat, which is basically giving DBT of insurance to lower sections of the society. But it also includes the mobility and the Aadhaar system for your identification and authentication. If we can keep the Aadhaar stack or the JAM stack or India stack at the middle, and we build around on top of it and have these cultural sets from MSMEs, there is nobody stopping us from not becoming Atmanirbhar. That's exactly what we need.
Thank you. Another question is from Mr. Rahul Uzarkar. What could be the future of IT hardware industry in years to come?
Partly answered that question, Rahulji. The reason why IT industry needs to go and hardware industry is to make their own. And I think there's a lot of injunction now that the government has started. I think you would have heard that there's a package of 20,000 crores that has been given. Nitin Gadkari ji has also spoken in August 2019, I suppose, where he said that Bharat Craft would essentially come in as a portal, but the Indian IT hardware industry needs to change to essentially manufacturing our own systems. We are too dependent for sensors, IoT stuff for outside countries. I think that has to come down to our own country.
Thank you. There's one question from Mr. Niranjan Upadhyay. What are you doing for Academia Industry Connect?
Niranjanji, we do a lot of things. I have about almost 120 colleges connected to me. And these are both national and international. All the colleges, if you go, at least in the Pune sector, all the well-known names like COEP, like SIT, Symbiosis, I have interns who are working with me almost every year. We essentially have about 300 to 350 interns that work with us almost every year, and they work on different projects. In fact, there are projects which are working independently inside colleges as well. For example, Symbiosis Institute of Technology has a makers lab inside Symbiosis, and they are essentially working on a wheelchair which is frugal and is also basically called enabled for essentially automating everything that we are doing today. That's one thing. We are working with IITs in the research sectors that we are essentially today involved in. IITs are helping us to do research, and we are also participating in that research. We work with some of the international universities like RMIT. We work with international universities like University of Sydney, where these people send their kids to us. And we essentially train them on the new art of technology like AI, etc. And we go back and we mentor them as well. In fact, you'll be very happy to note that the entire Bangladesh sector of colleges and universities connected to Tech Mahindra Makers Lab. And we are mentoring some about 10 startups over there which are related to agriculture. And this is in part of the Bangladesh government who knew that Makers Lab essentially does this. So there's a large connection that Tech Mahindra does from an industry standpoint. We have gone way beyond colleges today. I have a program which is running in Glendale School or Glendale Academy in Hyderabad, where young kids from 13 to 17 years old are making their first chatbots to be deployed in their school. And they are being mentored by my folks in Makers Lab. And the same system essentially runs in US with another Girl Scout center, where we are training these young girls for about 12 to 14 years of age and putting them onto technology. So there's a huge connect if you want to see from an industry and an academy.
Thank you. Another question from Mr. Rupesh Padwalkar. Is IPR promotion hindrance to innovation holistically? What is your experience about it?
I think, Rupesh ji, you're right. IPR promotion was a hindrance, but I don't think that should be a hindrance now. I think the idea is more collaboratively taking these IPRs. Having said that, patenting an IPR is a fundamental condition for Indians to essentially. If you look at some of the data points, we do 1/10 of the patent industry and the IPR provisioning today, and it is completely led by China and US. I think IPR has to be promoted. Patenting has to be promoted. It is only at that facet that innovation or India would become the seat of innovation, as we call it. I think you would see a WhatsApp message doing the round these days that what happened during this COVID-19 time, India showed superior innovation than even the Silicon Valley. They were just sitting. But whatever we have done with our Arogya Setu, whatever we have done with combining the citizens together has been a journey and has been a case study of what India has produced in innovation. So we do not need a COVID-19 to produce that innovation. We can do it during the peace times as well, as we call it, right? So, but great question, Rupesh ji. I think you're absolutely right.
Thank you. One question from Mr. Shreyas Kolhapure. What different techniques you use or practice for ideation and to trigger innovative thinking for people working or associated with Makers Lab?
So, we follow a process which is called Holacracy, HOLACRACY. You can go and read about it. This is a technique which is utilized by a lot of innovative companies. So our organization in Makers Lab is Holacratic. What it really means is there is no hierarchical structure. First things first, there is no manager, there's no boss, etc. that typically gets made in some of the service industries. Secondly, it's also not a flat structure. It's a structure which is dependent on the task that you do. So it's like a football match or a soccer match. If you look at a soccer game, the midfielder is supposed to pass the ball to the striker, and the striker's ability or the striker's role is only to score the goal. Whether the midfielder likes the striker or not is immaterial because you have to win the game. In the same Holacratic process, whether a young kid comes to our system and he's leading a project and I am the project member of that, or I am leading the project and somebody else is the project member, is only given by a Holacratic system. So Holacracy is one of those components from a management perspective that we follow inside the space of Makers Lab. The second ideology of Makers Lab is to essentially infuse pride. Unless you have pride and ownership of whatever you do not produce innovation and you do not produce creative results. The third facet we believe is that age does not matter. It's the mindset that matters. And the mindset over the past 10, 15 years in the industry has been think out of the box. Well, our condition inside Makers Lab is there is no box. So if you can think from anywhere, any point around, you would be able to get that value over there. And of course, free will and free flow of creative ideas is very, very important for people to think innovatively. I think every human being has a lot of creative ideas. It's all about driving that connect and passion together and putting it into a team format and saying that this is what we want to do. And sometimes we have found that purpose drives that passion too much. I think what we have shown and what we found out was that this purpose for working towards a humanitarian cause, towards citizens, helping the government, was a great purpose for people to join in and give their own ideas as well. So if you can define a purpose, innovation automatically happens.
Thank you.
Yeah, Lalaji, Lalit, I think you're on mute, but yeah, you can go ahead.
What sensor you use in tracking system? That is what he's asking.
The COVID tracker. Yeah, the sensor is basically a very simple, it's a partner company that has made the sensor. The sensor is essentially a patch of device which essentially measures your temperature. And it can be attached to your body like a simple patch. And that is a sensor, and it's a temperature measure sensor that you have utilized. Very common temperature sensors which are available in the market.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Nikhil. And if you can share your email or your contact so that people can contact you for some more this thing.
So I have the first slide, which actually gives me my LinkedIn and Twitter accounts. If you can reach out to me through there, or I can also give you my email ID and you can share it with people and they can come.
Finally, there is one last question which is coming from Mr. Shreyas, and many of them have asked this: how an individual can contribute to Makers Lab?
Well, you just have to reach out to us, sir, and think depending on what your skill set is, we'll be able to help you essentially in the contribution facet. We typically go in research and development, but we also want a lot of outside-in perspective. So it is great if you want to join in. For example, in our research in Sanskrit that we are trying to do, our research in natural language processing that we're trying to do, it is always good to contribute and have a contribution and collaboration with a large set of people. Work well for humanity and also commercially. I think somebody had a question, how do you make commercial value out of it? The commercial success comes from our IPs. While we do all of this, there is also IPs and frameworks which our customers, which our account are selling. So that's the commercial basis. But then there's another basis of research and development. More than happy if you can write to me and say how you can contribute, we'll be more than happy to include that. Not a problem.
I would inform the participants that we will be putting the presentation on cloud and sharing the link with all the participants so that they can, it's not easy to share the presentation right now, but we will definitely put it on cloud so that everybody can have a look at it. To end this session, I would like to thank Mr. Nikhil Malhotra for taking out the time.
Thank you so much, sir.
And it was really very delighted presentation from you, and we got an insight about all what is being done at Tech Mahindra. Thank you very much, and I would request all my participants very happy this thing, stay at home. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, gentlemen. And thank you so much, Lalit and MCCI team. And thank you to the audience. Stay safe, stay home.
Lastly, I would like to thank all my team members of MCCI for this presentation. Thank you. Thanks a lot.